I am here today because I wanted to talk about the ego. So, I have had lots of people, clients, and people that I talk to online, and just friends, family, that sort of thing. It's like so many people don't know what the ego is. So, if you ask someone what intuition is, some people may also, my my pup is hanging out there. Some people just don't know what intuition is either. So um, today we're kind of just talking about how to tap into that intuition versus how to not live in ego, I guess. So I think procrastination is a big part of this. This would be a great example of, I know that I need to do something, so my intuition is telling me to. Maybe it's related to finances, like I know that I need to pay, my bill for the 31st. But my instincts are telling me that I want to go to this event on the 20th, but I don't have enough money to pay my bill on the 31st. So the logical side of ourselves will say, no, you can't. And so ego is a form of logic, which is a form of a fear-based thought or a negative thought that comes in that tells us, no, you can't. And so, it's not that logic is always ego as much as it is that there's a thought that's coming in that's negative, okay? So we can be rational and be intuitive, right? It doesn't always have to be dramatic. It's a difference between trusting and having faith versus living in fear and living in control. So I think that's why I say logical, because people who tend to need logic tend to want to control things. So fixation is an example. So people that work on meditation are letting go of ego and they're letting go of control. They're letting go of thoughts that continue. When we're working with intuition, we're working around the heart energy, working with more love-based thoughts that are positive. So we're not going to use the word logic versus intuition as much as we are positive versus negative. So when ego comes in, this is like it's a lot of it can be factual based, right? So it could be that we'll use wearing a bra for this one as an example. So it's like, okay, well, intuitively, I don't want to put on a bra. And then the ego may come in and say, well, your boobs are going to sag. And then you'll be like, oh yeah, boobs are going to sag, so I have to put my bra on, even though it's really uncomfortable and I don't want to. So if you keep feeding into that voice that comes into your head, wherever these thoughts came from, whether it was somebody said it or there's evidence based around that thought, you choose the thoughts you create, okay? So the thought will come in and then you have to let that go. So that's why we talk a lot about meditation practice. When we slow down, it's a lot easier to work with positive energy. It's a lot easier to work with our heart because we're actually letting go of our thoughts. All right. So when we can let go of all those thoughts and start opening up to the heart, that's when we can start getting more happy feelings, positive feelings. That's where we can start thinking from a perspective of getting clarity on situations, because all these ego thought and logical thought based things that are lingering around, even feelings, are clouding our judgment, right? So talking about paying that bill on the 31st, we may think in our minds like, I can't go to that event because if I go to that event, I can't pay my rent or I can't pay my bill. And it's like, is that the truth? Is that true? Because, that hasn't happened yet. So why are you telling yourself that you can't, or why are you saying something won't work out? So that's what the ego is. That's what the ego does. It comes in and tells us no. It comes in and tells us negative things. It's feeding that aspect of ourselves of you won't make it, you're not good enough, and so that's kind of more what I'm talking about. So if we tell ourselves all these negative things, that's where it's coming from, and I think that's why I wanted to talk about it, because it's like when I say ego, and you don't know what that means, or when I talk about control and I talk about fear, it may be misinterpreted as to like where this is coming from, because it happens to all of us. We all get that. Like of course I get that. I'll hear that stuff all the time. It could be like so simple, such a simple thing, and then I'm like, oh my god, this isn't true. This is just like a thought that came into my head. Just because a thought came into my head doesn't mean that it's true. And those thoughts are coming from logic. It's coming from fear. It's coming from control, because somebody said once upon a time said something. So then I have to stop, relax, breathe, clear that thought, look into my heart, trust my body, trust how I feel, and I make decisions based on how my heart feels, not based on this thought of, thought that the thought of something I don't want to do, the thought of something that doesn't really resonate in my heart. So when we can start trusting that our instincts are coming from a place of love, a place from like spirit telling us something, meaning when spirit's telling us something, it's coming from our heart. Something inside of our heart is telling us yes. Something inside of our heart tells us the truth. So that's why this is coming up, because this week in my readings I was talking so much about truth seeking and truth telling for balance, and I was hearing that there's somebody watching that keeps hearing all these negative things, and it's like, in order to find balance, we have to hear positive things. So we have to feed ourselves with positive things, but we also have to feed our intellect and take care of our bodies also, because if we're not taking care of our bodies, we really can't hear those positive voices in our head. So if you're feeling detached emotionally from yourself, what place or space are you going to be living in? Fear, control, ego, negativity, you can't, you aren't enough? Or are you going to be working from a place like you are loved by the universe is abundant, there's enough for everyone, go to that event, trust that things will work out, the stars will align. So many people think that that's not realistic because it's not logical. No, it's not logical. It's actually an intuitive thought that came into my head from spirit or from my heart, and my heart tells me that that's okay, and I trust that it is okay, and then I have faith that that will happen. If I let my ego tell me you're not, that's not going to happen, then I'm going to feel like that's not going to happen, and then when it doesn't happen, I'm going to be like, yeah, that was, I need to stay on this path. I just, logically I have to pay all my bills, and I can't go to that event. I can't do things that I want to do. So the main thing is that we're learning as we go along, because we're not always going to follow our intuition, and we're not always going to be living in ego, because there are going to be right things that we're doing and wrong things that we're doing. So this is just learning about choices. And this is about a mentality. So hopefully some of this resonates with you. So when I talk about the stars aligning and that sort of thing, it is a choice as to how you want to live, but you have to ask yourself, is this, self-fulfilling prophecy working for me? Am I feeding that ego, and then confirming that negative things happen to me, or confirming that I have to keep living that way? So what happens to people that keep living in that state is they start to get sick. and they get sick in the mind also, and they're convinced that their way is right, and they start to feel a little bit dark and a little bit down, but they can't figure out why. So that's a big aspect of, aligning with the stars, and learning how to grow, and learning how to, like, everyone can grow in a positive way, and you can bring positive energy into the world, and that really there's positive to all negative, and there's negative to all positive, so it's all about choices. And it's about filtering out those negative thoughts. So that's more what I'm getting at, is how can I filter my negative thoughts when a negative thought comes in? How do I let that go? So we talk a lot about meditation. We talk a lot about Reiki healing. I do theta healing. I teach. I do workshops, and I'm teaching a retreat here on the 28th. So getting to know yourself, getting to know your partner, getting to know society's ways, and how you fit into society, and how you don't want to become a part of society in certain aspects. Working on how do I change, how do I grow in the workplace, and in how will the medical field change, how can we create more public affection in the world so people aren't scared to touch each other in public, how people won't be scared to start speaking their mind. So this is more about like people who need evidence around everything. So why do you feel like you need evidence for everything? That's more what this is about. So if you've been hurt in the past, it could be, well, like your past is an indicator of your future. So if I've been hurt in the past, then I'm going to be hurt in the future, right? So this is learning that your past doesn't always create your future, right? It's just that we have to learn from our past in order to let go of patterns, in order to let go of negative beliefs, so we can move forward and onward. So people's mentalities towards, if you've done this in the past, you're going to do this again. That's not always the case. It's just that you have to learn from that. And obviously the stuff goes in much deeper, like how much support you have, what your genetics are, how much, what your income is, of course. So you have to be smart and aware of where you are in this moment, and then working towards your goals, towards changing. So if you feel like people don't change, people never change, this is an attitude adjustment, and it's kind of like, well, where are you getting those thoughts from, right? So a lot of this stuff is that people have put things, you want to come sit with me? A lot of people put these thoughts into our heads, and we believe them. So ego is a thought that comes into our head, but it can still be based on what somebody else has said to us, that we have chosen to store in our minds and in our hearts. So the more we clear this energy, the better it is. But those thoughts will keep coming back up, and those thoughts will be there whether you believe what other people have said or not. So this is just like also a part of our spirituality, meaning there'll always be thoughts, and there'll always be fears, and there'll always be that need to control, because in the human life, we are a species that like to control, and it's our job to get out of control. It's our job to get, risque. It's our job to take risks and live and find peace and guidance and positive light in every situation. And it's not about being scared to look around the corner. It's about being excited to get around that corner and get around the next corner and start to learn to see around the next corner and trust that something positive is going to happen, rather than somebody's going to jump out at you and scare you. They're actually going to put their hand out to help you. And so the more of us get on board about talking about this stuff and doing some of these things, the more it will start to happen also. So some people are fragile, and they get taken advantage of, because if they're in a lower state where they're already, they've been hurt a lot, and then they start opening up, they feel like they're in a lower state, so they're more apt to be taken advantage of. And this could be true. Actually, I know that it's true, because if you're not looking after yourself, this stuff is going to be even harder. So that's why I'm talking so much about it, because people that are in lower states have to try like ×2 to get that energy level up. And people that are negative have to try twice as hard to be positive. So if you're already positive, what will also happen is negative people will try to, you know, there'll be like there'll be more negativity that will come towards you when you're positive. So and again, that's like the louder your ego is going to get, the more positive you are and the more you trust your instincts, the louder ego is going to get. And that's why I'm starting to talk to you guys about this, because it's not a negative thing that ego is coming in. It may mean that you're becoming more positive and you're starting to hear it more, whereas before you didn't hear it, you were just living in it, right? And so I'm sure that I'm triggering a lot of questions for people by talking about this, because there's a lot of topics within this like subject. But I think the key thing here is by taking care of ourselves and meditating and doing healing, we'll get more clarity and more answers for ourselves, and we'll be able to trust our instincts, and we'll be able to like start working on healing our hearts so that we can actually trust our bodies, what our body is telling us. So if we don't look after our body, how can we sense the vibrations in our body? We can't even feel those vibrations, right? But I know that there's one thing for sure is like, am I negative or am I positive? Do I feel negative or do I feel positive? So we're going to simplify it that way. So just trust your instincts and really work through some of those things. And I'm sure that there'll be questions in relation to what I was talking about, but I wanted to just do like a quick blurb. So just slow down and meditate around some of that as well. And yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to do this video and have a chat about it, okay? So Hank and I are here to support you if you have questions. And namaste. Have a great day. Thank you so much for subscribing. Bye.